Hey, Carl Willis, day 34 of the video challenge. And what I want to talk to you about today is not waiting for perfect conditions. One of the things that I find is sometimes we want to delay taking action until we have perfect conditions. So let me give you an example. You have the desire to help people who are in need, but you keep waiting for a certain dollar figure in your income before you start taking action on it. So you never really take those initial steps. So here's where I want to come from today. I'm actually going to use a story from the Bible has come up a couple of times over the last week and a half, and I think it's appropriate. So there's an account in the Bible, and if you read all four Gospels, it's there. And Jesus is out, and a crowd gathers around him, and so he teaches all day. This crowd has at least 5,000 men plus women and children. And it gets to the end of the day, and the disciples say, Jesus, send them away. They're hungry. They need to get something to eat. And Jesus looks at his disciples and says, you feed them. Now, I want you to picture that for a minute. There's 5,000 people there plus. And Jesus tells his disciples, you feed them. You take care of it. And so, depending on which gospel you're reading, one of the disciples says, where should we buy food? To buy food for all these people would take more than 6 months' worth of wages. And ultimately, they come to Jesus with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. That's all they've got. Jesus gives thanks for the fish and the bread, and they distribute it amongst the people. And what the Bible shows is that when everyone had eaten their fill, they collected 12 baskets of leftovers. So it struck me watching this. I've read that story in Scripture many, many times, but I was sitting there thinking about something. What Jesus was doing was seeing what his disciples would do. He was testing them. In fact, it's one of the things that Scripture says. He tested them with this. But they took action. And I never really thought about that before. They at least went out and took inventory of what they had. So Jesus says, you feed the crowd. And the disciples go out and they come back and they say, we've got 5 loaves of bread and these 2 fish. This is all we've got. Now, the reality is what they were bringing to Jesus was not nearly enough to get the job done. But in the hands of Jesus, it was more than enough to get the job done. So here's where I'm going with that. Some of you, myself included sometimes, are hesitating on taking action because you've assessed the situation and you've already decided it's not enough. I don't have enough to make a difference here. In fact, I come across this many times where there's a need, and I know I don't, in what I see, have the ability to meet the whole need. So instead of doing something, I just choose to do nothing. Because I say, well, there's no way I can meet this need. And I forget that God can take the little bit that I put in his hands and do amazing things with it. Well, I see people do the same thing, when it comes to their business. I'm just not to that place yet, so I can't take this step. And really what they need to do is just simply take action. If you're seeking God's guidance with your business, and I know not everybody watching this doesn't believe the way I do, so I'll state that out front. But if you're like me, if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, I would hope you're putting your business before God on a daily basis and trusting him to take your efforts and multiply them beyond anything you can imagine. But often what it takes is that first that first small step. For you to go out amongst the crowd and go, all I've got is these 5 loaves and 2 fishes. That's all I've come up with. But here they are. Well, the same is true for you. Maybe you've got 1 hour a day. Here's my 1 hour a day. This is all I've got. but I'm going to give it to you. You will be amazed at what God will do with that 1 hour a day if you'll just simply give it to him, if you'll just simply take action. Maybe it's you've got some benevolent things that you want to do, but you can't do much. But for the last almost 15 years, my wife and I have sponsored children in Honduras, and we spend $25 a month. In the beginning, I wanted to do so much more, but just that little bit has done so much for those kids as we've watched them grow, as we've gotten letters from them. There have been other needs that have been addressed before Carol and I, and we want to do so much more on a larger scale, but all we have is a little bit. But we go ahead and give towards that need anyway. And we just watch it mushroom as God does amazing things with it. And that's what I'm getting at with you. Don't discount what God can do with what little you feel like you're putting in. Don't base your outcomes on how you feel about them. Just take action. Do simply what you know you need to do. So in the case of the disciples, Jesus said, you feed them. What they needed to do was to find out what they had to work with. What you need to do is perhaps the same thing. Maybe you need to look at what can you actually do. You say, well, I don't have the money to advertise. Could you not take out a $7 promoted post on Facebook? Take that first step. Maybe you could take out a $25 advertising package, a $30 solo ad. Don't say you can't just because you don't have a lot in your hands. Put forth the action and see what happens with it. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts today. As a side note, today is my 43rd birthday, so I've had some time to reflect a little bit on these first 43 years. And that's one of those key things that I see God challenging me on. That's a place where I've seen him prove himself time and time again. If you'll just simply take action towards what I've put in your hands, what I'm directing you to do, watch what I do with it. So those are my thoughts today. If you'd like to connect with a group of entrepreneurs who can help you take action at whatever level you're at, small steps, big steps, then I invite you to click the button below this video. Watch the presentation, and I look forward to locking arms with you in the days to come. Have a great day.